Hey, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew here, talking today about how to keep your players interested in your campaign. And another way of saying that is how they stay invested in the campaign, because they're investing their time, whether once a week or every other week, however many 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. That investment, they want to pay off a return on their investment, which is to have fun, but also to feel like they're part of the world, especially a homebrewed campaign. You're running a module, and is the module fun? Is it fair, balanced? Are they making the objectives or whatever? Again, I think with modules, some of them you just run them straight up. They're not that interesting. You got to add your own thing. But I'm talking about homebrewed campaign. You're making everything up. How do you keep having fun? Now, one of the things people say is, oh, well, as long as they're leveling up at a regular basis, players are going to have fun, right? All they care about is, I want to get to 5th level and get these abilities and feats or whatever it is. I want to get to 7th level and the new spells or however you do that. But I've been in campaigns where there were sort of milestones every third session or fourth or whatever. We all went up a level and nobody was invested. And I've seen campaigns where we didn't level up very often and people were totally interested. In fact, I've heard of campaigns where they go months without leveling up, but they're so involved in the storyline, their immersion in this world, that they're totally invested. They're totally interested in what's going on. So while leveling is important, I think you do, that's an easy way to see players see their progression through your world. Don't just rely on that. In order to make them feel invested, there's a number of techniques that you can use. So the first one is to give the players a personal connection to the major figures and places in your campaign. You could base this on their backgrounds, when they talk about where their character's from, what they were doing before they started adventuring or joining the party. And then create some connections. In the town they start in, do they have a central meeting place, a tavern? Is there a connection there? The tavern owner is one, but there could be something else. The player as a young person knew about this tavern or this place. Again, if they were in the military, was their father in the military or mother or whatever, and they have this connection to that, such that when something goes on there, when someone asks for a favor or wants them to do a mission, they have a personal connection. Or do they have childhood friends that are now running into trouble or are part of this larger storyline? Because you're always trying to think of a way to get that fictional paradox going in which imaginary characters, NPCs, that the players have some bond with, some family connection or something that happened to them, they're really good friends. When they're in trouble or when they want some help or when they're being harassed, all this kind of stuff, the players are going to respond to that. That creates investment because the players are imagining themselves as that person's friend or family member. But you can continue with these personal relationships as you move through the campaign. Some person sees what the characters are doing, comes to them for help. They're especially vulnerable. You tell their story. They're being harassed by someone. The players are going to respond to this. They're going to say, I want to help this person. It doesn't have to be someone from their background. You're always thinking about the reaction of your NPCs or sentient monsters or whatever. You could develop a relationship with a race of giants or a dragon, whatever that is, where when that dragon or giant or NPC wants help or wants a favor, if you've developed personal relationship, you've figured out a way such that what the players did made that NPC monster, whatever, pay attention to them, and then, ask for help or give them insight into what they're doing or give them their history and what's been happening to their clan or their lineage, whatever that is. Now the players are involved. Now they have a stake. That person has trusted them with these, whether it's memories or the story or whatever. And then in the greater good of, if the players are involved in, setting things right in a way, helping people out of some historical bad thing, whatever that is, they take it on personally because they have a relationship with that NPC or sentient monster. And another thing you can do is to let your players literally invest in your world. Now, depending on how much treasure you give away and how much you allow them to buy, like gear and stuff like that is one thing. If the players are just saving up money to buy magic items and you're just allowing them to buy it, whatever they want, that's one thing. If you have a lower magic world, it's not as available, the players will start to accumulate treasure because you want to give out treasure. It's part of the literary tradition of fantasy, whether it's the sword and sorcery style or even high fantasy. Great treasures are out there, and that's what the players want. Well, they get all this loot. Give them opportunities to spend it on something in your world. For instance, do they need a home base? They begin to gather, let's say they gather at a tavern or something. Maybe there's an abandoned tavern, has on some side of town that just needs an investor, i.e. the players, to create a home base. They get NPCs to run it for them if they're going to go out adventuring and whatnot. Now they have a place to stay. Maybe they'll have a satellite one at another city. You don't have to get too complicated in this. You just set some price, the players buy in, but now they own this. It doesn't cost that much to maintain. And it motivates them to go out and get more treasure, more adventures and whatnot. And they're invested now in the town. They are part of the town. And the other thing about this is, as they get in level and as they accumulate things, they have renown, but they also become members of the social order that are recognized. Now they get invited to things at if you have a king at the castle or a prince or a baron or something like that. If the leading figures of the town get together because there's some threat, the wizard has discovered something, the players are invited, right? And that makes them, now that because they have not only just renown, but they have a tavern or a business, or they get a ship and they go on shipping concerns. I had a whole group of player characters that had those whole shipping line, and they were into it, right? They wanted to do this kind of thing. Well, now you're a leading member of the town, and they're invested in what happens to that town. Even though it's an imaginary thing, even though they don't really spend the time you would to run an actual business with accounting and all that stuff, it's just done abstractly, they have that investment. Another thing you can do is to create a trading concern like the old Dutch East India companies, where it was a shared stock company, and they went to the Dutch East Indies, or in India, the British one. You can set up these kind of things to go explore. And what this does is it gives you the money that you might need to outfit an expedition. Not just, hirelings and bearers and, animals, but you could also have magic items that are taken on this mission, hiring of high-level NPCs. And this is where you get into your sort of epic battles, or, we're going to take on some stronghold of someone. But again, the people are investing in this venture in order to explore and gain loot, right? Just like they did in the Age of Exploration. So another classic thing that you can do to keep the players interested is to vary the style of play, right? We often divide it with combat, exploration, and social interactions. People say, I always tend to say role-playing, but however you want to say that. Well, what happens is you have some players, all they want to do is fight. They've built their character to have combat. They just want to go to battle. You have another player character, they've done all those battles. They get bored. Maybe their role in the battle is kind of boring. They want to do social interaction. And another that just wants to go explore, make maps, find things, right? If your whole group is a battle-oriented or an exploration or whatever, social interaction, then that's pretty easy to do. Although, I would say to change that up. And if they're, split up, then you got to vary that sort of thing. But another thing you can do is be creative about, let's say you have a social interaction group, they've been doing this a while, create little combats, little instances where someone is going to go tell something and they have to, make a move on them, go into the initiative type rounds to do something. And they're battles that are, or should I say, they're initiative driven encounters where the players may have to go get someone, grapple them, go sneak around and get something where they're still in that mode. The guards may find them. They're trying to warn someone. They're trying to pass a note, and they're trying to interrupt some negotiations. Things like that are combining the combat and the social interaction or even the exploration. So another thing to always keep in mind is that the player's actions have consequences in the world, both good and bad. When the players see that the things they do affect the course of the game. Now, again, I'm not talking about like where the players and the GM sort of create the game together. You've got this setup, this world, and you've got these personages, the NPCs or the monsters or whatever you're setting up. The players go in and do things, and then you think about what are the after effects of that? What happens? The players go and they discover some lost temple where a hag and a coven of hags have set up, and they're harassing people from here, and the players go in and wipe them out and, clean out the thing. They leave. Well, here's this old temple here still. What's going to move in there? Make a nice lair, right? And maybe it's something that, the townspeople that were saved from the hags don't like, or, maybe someone goes in there and discovers something else that's in there that the hags didn't see, whatever it is, and the players realize, oh, we did that, we created a power vacuum, and now something else is happening there. When the players complete a mission, and for somebody, does that person, that NPC, tell another NPC, hey, if you need, things done and you want discretion or whatever, and these are the people that do it. And so they come to them and say, hey, I heard what you did for this person. Now I'd like you to do that. Or I heard you screwed my friend over. Now I'm going to get you. Now you're my enemy, right? This is another thing that, if you make a big noise, people hear and they might not like it. So there's good and bad consequences. And as the players move through the world, they'll start to think about what are going to be the consequences of these actions. When we do X, what's going to be Y, right? What might happen here? And they can see that it both makes sense, right? They can sort of see, but then things are going to come out of left field. Because the other thing that I think is very important is players cannot control things. Players, they do this and then unexpected things. And think of how much in life we think we know how a person's going to react to something. Whether it's someone we work with, our boss, a friend, someone we just see on the street or whatever. And we think they're thinking one thing and they turn out to be thinking something else, right? Totally different. Oftentimes we might have a negative view. Oh, they're mad about something. And they're like, I wasn't mad at all, whatever. Right? And this is the way the real world works. We don't really know what people are going to do or think. We try our best to navigate that. So when the players do something and interact with NPCs or monsters, think of ways that, based on the interests of that NPC, or if they're crazy or something, right? If they're super evil, I don't know, but it's something different than what the players think. And it can be real simple, something like orcs. However you play them in your world, the players confront them and they act differently than the players thought. They don't just attack. They don't act negatively. They have objectives and goals, and something is different here. And now the players maybe find themselves, not aligned necessarily, but dealing with these orcs. And then they run into townspeople that are like, "Oh, we'll pay you to wipe out the orcs." The players have a relationship with the orcs. It's different than they thought. What's the townspeople? What's the story there? Are they just being harassed by the orcs, or do they want something from them? Do they want to take their territory? Right? We see this a lot in history. Maybe the orcs were there before them. They're the indigenous people here, and these townspeople are like, we want that farmland or whatever it is, right? And so you're kind of turning things around. If the players go, we're not going to help you defeat these orcs. In fact, we're going to defend them. What are the implications of that? How do these townspeople react, right? And again, the players can't control that. They could just leave the area and say, you know what, I'm going to wash my hands of this whole thing. But if not, they can't control what those townspeople do. And those are consequences that happen in the real world. When we do things, it sends out ripples. And even if they're negative things, even if the players are now left saying, what are we going to do? We helped these orcs out. These townspeople are mad. They've gone to the Baron who's like, what's going on? You're helping these orcs. It keeps them interested. It keeps them invested. Because the thing is that now they got to figure their way out of this. Now they got to, go here and go there, or figure out what's with these townspeople. Let's investigate this. Is there something going on? And hopefully you've created something that there is a reason. It might be as mundane, like I said, as just they want more farmland. But it might be something more sinister. There might be someone behind this that wants these orcs removed. Maybe the orcs know something about this person. Because the orcs aren't necessarily good, or, again, however you play orcs, but there's something else going on. And the reason that they discover this maybe is that the NPCs act in a way they didn't expect, because this happens all the time in real life. And when people do things we don't expect, even if we don't like it, it keeps things interesting. Just like a story that takes a turn we didn't expect. We're like, what? And then you're interested. Now, if it's a ridiculous turn, it still has to abide by story rules that I talked about in a video a while back. Story rules are often more rigid than in real life, which can just do whatever. But if it all makes sense sort of in the end, but it totally takes the player by surprise, that's what engages them. And those things then turn around, all those things, when the players have action, there's a reaction to what they're doing, this influences NPCs, but perhaps in a way they didn't expect. And then the NPCs may look at what the players have accumulated, their investment in the world, whether it's their tavern, they burn down their tavern. Might be a little extreme, but it depends on what the players do. Now, you burn down my tavern? What the heck? And so now the players are going to go and, retaliate or whatever, or find out who's doing this. The players have invested in the world, so they have more committed, or they have a relationship with an NPC that is being harassed, but they're being harassed because the players did something to cause this reaction. And all of these things accumulate, and create interest and investment in the world. And it doesn't just have to come from, oh, now I'm 8th level, now I'm 10th level. Because again, if you're in an uninteresting world, doesn't matter if you're 20th level, you're just, what are you going to have, just epic battles? It's like we used to do as kids. We would just create these high-level characters, have battles. Well, it got boring, right? We weren't invested. We didn't care. It's like one-shots, right? They can be really fun once in a while, but the campaign creates the investment, and that's what will keep your players interested. So hopefully those tips are helpful. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always looking for more. Leave some comments, some techniques you do to keep your players interested and invested in your homebrewed campaign. And of course, keep playing whatever role-playing game you are interested in and tell somebody else about it.